Welcome, guys and girls, to the final episode of my Game of the Year 2012 Top 10 Countdown, where we find out who was the big winner for the year, who will take home the official #1 spot in Ghost Robo's Top 10 2012 list. First off, though, I want to give some honorable mentions to a few other games that impressed me and I feel deserve accolades from 2012. There are 5 of them, and we will start off with Alan Wake's American Nightmare, one of my favorite downloadable titles of the year. It struck Xbox 360 early in 2012, and Alan Wake, the original, is an amazing game. I really loved it. I think it does so much well, storytelling-wise, and I did enjoy the gameplay. The environment is fantastically created. This time I felt like they really tidied up combat quite a bit. They made it a much more smooth and mechanically sound experience. The limited budget, the limited scope really kind of drove me crazy, and that's what pushed this game off the list. I thought it was cool at first, repeating the same thing over and over again, but by the third time, it was really too much, and going through the same areas and the same things happening was just kind of, like, great in theory and just A-okay in execution. But I did like getting more Alan Wake. I think that's one of the richest worlds created this generation. The next game is Mark of the Ninja, continuing on the downloadable trail. I think this game is absolutely fantastic. I think it's an improvement on anything else that studio has created. Clay did Shank, and they did Eats and some other things, but Mark of the Ninja is absolutely fantastic. It's a very good arcadey stealth game that eliminates most of the frustration, but packs in all the fun that stealth should bring. For some reason in my mind, I feel like this game is just too small, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I know that it's pretty decent length, and it's a downloadable title, but it bugs me that it feels very formulaic. It feels almost like an iPhone game in the sense that you are executing very simple actions in different instances, almost like you have, a slew of 30 levels in Angry Birds or something like that. And I don't mean to say that that lowers the quality of the game at all. I just mean that the story didn't grab me at all. There's very little of it. And for me, the mechanics, while being very fun, didn't entirely wow me. I think the game is very good, and I think of any of the games I'm about to mention, it was probably the closest to climbing into the top 10, though, so please know that I do love it. The next, the third one out of these 5 is Sleeping Dogs. Sleeping Dogs was an open-world game that I really enjoyed. I don't normally fully enjoy open-world games with tons of side missions, and while I did not do a ton of side missions in Sleeping Dogs, I liked the gunplay. I thought it was very good. Grand Theft Auto historically had bad gunplay, and I thought this kind of shored up a lot of those issues. I enjoy exploring Hong Kong quite a bit. I like the different focus of a lot of the missions. You had quite a range of variety. Some of them were flops, Specifically, I remember one where you're hiding in an apartment and it just felt all sorts of clunky, but I appreciate their ambition to try to mix things up, and the combat was dang brutal. It was intense and brutal. It just got tiring after a while, and I felt like they didn't do enough to innovate. The story dragged on It was interesting in terms of what they touched on, but it kind of hit a lot of the same notes over and over again. You're like, okay, what is the resolution of all this? But very good game nonetheless, one I wholeheartedly recommend. The next title is XCOM, and the only reason XCOM Enemy Unknown is not on my list is because I just did not have a chance to play it enough. I think it's a very cool game. I think it's very well done. It's one of those games that makes you think and makes you like really get into the notion of I'm this military commander and moving these units around. I just didn't have a chance to play enough of it, and in some ways I had to factor that in. The fact that I wasn't drawn to play like it a ton, had to say something about it. So while I really wanted to include that one on my list, it just was not meant to be. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the best game of 2012 in 2013 if I ever do another award like that. But it just was not its time this year. The final game, and one that I just wanted to make sort of a side note mention, is NBA 2K13. I know sports games rarely get mentioned on top 10 lists, but I think this one is fantastic. It is probably my most played game of 2012 because I cannot get enough of the multiplayer with my brothers, with friends online. It's fantastic, and there's something, the adrenaline rush of sports games is hard to match. I know Call of Duty feels that way to some people, and Halo feels that way to some people, but for me, the biggest competitive spirit I get is in sports titles, so I wanted to make a note that NBA 2K13 is a fantastic basketball game and a fantastic game overall. Now, though, guys and girls, we must delve into the real #1, the winner, the big finale. #1 on my top 10 2012, the game of the year for 2012 by me is FTL. Yes, Faster Than Light. the very, very awesome Space Simulator downloadable survival fest crazy quest is my favorite game of 2012. And while some of you may scoff at its 2D nature, while some of you may scoff at its very limited graphics, while some of you may scoff at even its very sort of hardcore strategy focus, I found this game to be my most enjoyed experience of 2012. I got my laptop, I sat in my bed, and I enjoyed playing this over and over and over. I could not get enough. It was like one of the comfiest, most fun experiences for me, where I really just hunkered down at the game and enjoyed playing it so much. You get to name your characters, and I normally don't get so into that. If I name a character, it's like, whatever, it's not a big deal. FTL made me, like, genuinely care. I named my characters after my brothers, my girlfriend, myself, and when someone died or was lost to a fire or got captured by another alien, I was like, no, you have to be kidding me! And it was the first time I ever felt that. So many people talk about getting attached, to their RPG characters or to a MMO character, but this is the first time I genuinely felt like I was, wanted these people to survive, and all the intricacies of how you travel from star system to star system and all the random encounters and how sometimes you just run into a bunch of giant spiders that eat one of your crew members, and sometimes you save a crazy rock alien from captors and he comes aboard your ship and helps man the systems, and how you have to decide with such limited funds, what are you going to do? You're going to spend money on fuel, you're going to spend money on weapons, and the death conditions are so harsh, so frequent, that any sliver of victory felt like a huge accomplishment. I still have yet to beat FTL. I still have yet to finish that, and it probably only takes about an hour and a half to get to the, quote, end of the game, but it is infinitely repeatable because of the fact that you unlock new ships, because of the fact that there's always something different. No two games will be the same, and I still run into things I've never seen. Sure, after a while you get accustomed to what the options are. Maybe you'll run into an asteroid field, maybe you'll battle a pirate ship, maybe someone will request for help and turn out to be evil, maybe you'll have to save these scientists trapped in these pods, maybe you'll recover an ancient artifact and sell it for a bunch of money. But the bottom line is, this game is so good. They mix things up to perfection, where I genuinely feel like I'm adventuring through space. And I think that a game that does that with very limited visuals, a game that does that with quite honestly limited interactivity, just clicking the button, is an awesome achievement. And I love the music. It's fantastic. It gets in your head, makes you feel even more spacey, like you're in Star Wars or Star Trek or some crazy faraway galaxy just surviving. There's an isolation to it where it's just quiet and you're moving your little guys around. And I think the graphics are quite charming. I think that they're really, as little detail as there is, you see the little people, you're like, that's me, I'm manning the pilot. I always made sure I was the pilot. I was always the pilot. I always made sure that Rosa, my girlfriend, was close to me, whatever system she was working on. I put one of my brothers back on weapons, and it just became a very involved experience for me, where I was dedicated and committed to making sure these people survive. I played Mass Effect 3, a lot about survival. I played Far Cry 3, a lot about survival. I played quite a few games that were about, making sure your character and his band of friends or family survived, and yet this is the one where I grew the most attached to their survival. I draw a lot of parallels to this thematically with Walking Dead for what it did for me. I know that they're very different gameplay-wise, very different story-wise, very different on what subject matter they revolve around, but in terms of an attachment to a game, an attachment to a group of characters, that is where I would draw the parallel, and I think FTL is fantastic. It's so cheap. It's so cheap. It's $10. It's been on sale for $5-6. Out of this world value, one of the few games I will replay over and over again with enjoyment. It does not ever bog down or become boring. It's one of the rare times where I lose track of time while I'm playing a video game. I don't check my phone, I don't look at the clock, I'm just like, we must survive, and I want to get to the next galaxy. I want to know what weapon I should buy, if I should spend all my money on a new crew member, and maybe buy a schematic for a drone upgrade for my ship, and it just is... I can't gush enough, and I know some of you are going to be like, you're crazy, this isn't even much of a game. But I promise you, if you give it a chance, and it might not be for some people, it absolutely won't, but if you give it a chance and it is your cup of tea, you will drink that cup of tea for days upon days upon days and think it tastes like gold. FTL is a amazing game, a 10 out of 10 for me, and my #1 game of 2012. Freaking hospital bed of doom. Ugh. We'll be okay, though. We have almost a full ship. We're just short a dude, and it was me. I perished on the ghost ship. No! Our lovely leader has vanished. Guys and girls, that is going to wrap up my list of the top 10 games of 2012, as well as some honorable mentions that I threw out. So my 15 favorite games, 10 of them numbered, 5 of them just getting the side note treatment this year, but it was overall a very good year. I was disappointed by the disappointments. You know, there was definitely 2 games I want to touch on here that I know you guys would be interested in, which is Assassin's Creed 3 and Dishonored. Assassin's Creed 3 disappointed me tremendously. Assassin's Creed 2 was my favorite game of that year. The only game, I'll let you know, on 360 that I have completely platinumed 1,000 out of 1,000 achievements. So I love this series, and I just felt like it did not make any real steps forward. I felt like the environments, while cool and, you know, more historically relevant to me, lacked any serious pizzazz. You know, there was no Roman Colosseum to climb. There was no gorgeous churches to explore. There was none of that. It was short buildings that all looked very similar and no true like landmark moments. I know that there was, you know, historical American landmarks, but none that really stood out to me. And for me, the world was dull. I thought the story was kind of slow and boring, and the gameplay really didn't improve in any ways. In fact, in some ways, I think it got less cool. I liked Assassin's Creed 2. I think that was the pinnacle of the series. I think some of their additions were not the greatest and not the most needed, and I absolutely did not like the ending. I think that was one of the worst endings in gaming history. It was such a cop-out, and it proves that Assassin's Creed 3 has truly become, or Assassin's Creed as a whole, the franchise, a cash cow, a money guzzler, the next Guitar Hero, Call of Duty, whatever you want to call it. Sad to say, but true. Dishonored, on the other hand, held a lot of promise. I played the first hour of the game and thought it would probably be one of my top 3 of the year. It gave me vibes of BioShock, vibes of Half-Life 2, vibes that I have only experienced so rarely. And then I realized that it was a game about creating your own enjoyment. Once you get the sense that you can make or break the system in whatever way you want, it's not about, oh, you must do this. It's about what do you choose to do? And I don't like that. I know that some people enjoy choice, but I would like a more confined set of options, because frankly, like I mentioned earlier, you can't just run and gun your way through, and that destroys it just zaps all the enjoyment out for me, because once I know I can do that, it seems pointless for me to spend the time stealth and doing that. It's just not for me, and it might be for you, and if it's a great game for you, awesome. I love that. I'm glad you enjoy it. I wish I enjoyed it more. Frankly, I'm disappointed in myself that I don't have the brain chemistry to enjoy a game like this more, but once I know that I don't have to do it a certain way, I can't force myself to do that. I can't force myself to create the fun. It's just not for me. So those two, they just didn't cut it. I wanted to love them. Assassin's Creed 3 was one of my most anticipated games of the year. Dishonored, same thing. And they both just really let me down. And I think there's good things about them. I think they're mechanically sound games. I think they have nice graphics. I think there's a lot of quality production value placed upon each game, but they just didn't make it for me this year. And that doesn't mean that they're bad games. This isn't a list of what games are bad and what games are good. It's my best games of 2012, my favorite games, and what I personally enjoyed the most. The other note I wanted to quickly mention is that my intention was to split this up and do multiple videos, because I thought that would be more exciting. I genuinely thought that it would be a more suspenseful, fun time for you guys. I love it when sites kind of go number 10, number 9, and you have to wait and you get excited to see what number 1 is. I don't like it. For me, I don't like just scrolling through a list and seeing 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm much more about why did they choose this, and learning about, what were their parameters for making these choices and what game was next, and hearing in-depth details. I got a lot of complaints that people, you could have said that all in 1 minute. You could have just shown the whole, the whole list in 5 minutes. But for me, this was more, about explaining to you guys and sharing with you why I really liked a game and all the intricacies of it. I like analyzing games. Before YouTube, I managed my own sites and wrote written reviews, and I really enjoy that part. I love podcasts. My favorite part of gaming is probably the discussions that occur around the games and deciding whether it's good or not good or what you like and arguing those points with people. So I genuinely thought this would be the most exciting and fun way to do it. And, probably next year I'll condense it to one video, but for those of you who were disappointed and thought that I was view whoring it out, I would like to point out that if I put them all in one video and released it earlier like I could have done, I probably would have actually gotten more views that way. So this was merely my attempts to make it as genuinely fun as I could for you guys, for my subscribers. So I'm sorry if that didn't pan out, but my intentions were good, and I will probably be making shifts for next year and switches, because clearly it wasn't as well received as I had hoped, and my intentions were not as pristine and clear to a lot of you as I had intended. But please know that I did try to make it as fun as possible. You now know my top 10 games. I hope you had some fun along the way. Let me know what you think of the video. And if you'd like to see more analysis type things like this from me in the future, it's been my favorite series of videos to do, to be blunt. I enjoyed this more than most walkthroughs I do. So, in terms of commentary, that is. So if you want to see more things like this, more, best of, top 10 reviews-ish, stuff like that, let me know if you kind of enjoy more of the in-depth look at games and gaming and what kind of goes into making them good, bad, and in between. But I do want to thank you, no matter who you are, for watching and for partaking in this countdown with me. Drink so much. Have a fantastic day, guys and girls. Hope you're all doing awesome. And until next time, we'll see you all later.